Okay, so I've got a couple of questions here that I'm going to try and answer all at the same time with regards to the water kefir soda video. So the first question is, thanks for the tips on harvesting sea berries, or also known as sea buckthorn. Do you have a freezer dedicated to storing and threshing the branches? That's the first part. The second part is, how does your fan winnowing work? Aren't the berries and leaves wet from having been frozen? And she finishes off with saying, we have several sea berry plants and our first and only attempt at harvesting was painful. So Mary, I can totally relate to that. So let's get through these one at a time here. So no, I don't have a dedicated freezer to harvesting the berries. We try and clean our freezer once a year. And so once the freezer kind of comes up for cleaning duty, we empty everything out, clean it out. Then we put the sea berries inside the freezer, freeze them. And once they're frozen, then we thresh them, and that separates the leaves from the berries. And we do that in the freezer itself. So all the berries and leaves fall to the bottom of the freezer. Then we use a fan to winnow it. So the berries fall straight down. So basically you get a big box fan. The box fan blows air. We drop the berries and the leaves down. The leaves blow out onto a tarp that you've placed somewhere over here. The berries fall into a bowl. You end up with a few berries and leaves over here. And so these berries and leaves get left behind. The berries that are in the bowl go back into the freezer into a Ziploc bag, and they get frozen. So those are fine. And then the leaves end up with a few berries in them. And so what we do is we roll out the berries to crush them. And then we leave that tarp and berries in a garage or something that's not too windy. And those will dehydrate over the course of a week or two, because it's usually in the summer when we're doing it. And then you get this really beautiful tea mix, which is what we use for our kefir soda. And so you don't have to worry about the leaves and any extra berries getting wet, because you're going to dehydrate them anyways. If you do that, it's quite easy to harvest these things. This is actually similar to how they do it in Eurasia, where the sea buckthorn is actually from. And what's really cool about the sea buckthorn is when you cut its head off, it actually drops nitrogen into the ground, because it's a nitrogen fixing plant. And so it's a really great nurse plant to have around other plants that like nitrogen, because not only are you getting a yield out of it, you're getting the berries and the leaves, plus you also get the wood, which you can burn, but you're also getting a nitrogen deposit into the soil, which helps those other plants to grow around it. I should mention that sea buckthorn leaf tea is worth over 17 bucks an ounce. So for something that's considered to kind of be a weed, it's pretty valuable. And if you do some research on sea buckthorn, it's super medicinal. The Russians have used it for years and years and years and years. It's got a lot of really interesting characteristics. So I recommend Googling sea buckthorn if you've never heard of it, and doing a bit of research on its medicinal properties. Okay, thanks so much for that question. I'm gonna just answer a couple more here because we're still on the water kefir segment here, the water kefir video. Janelle asks, thanks for the information. I've got some grains in my fridge for a while, but was daunted with the process. How long are the grains good for? So I don't really know, Janelle. I've never let them die, but it might be worth trying to revitalize them. So feed them some sugar. They also really like to eat a date, like that fruit, the date fruit. Like a dried date. So you stick that in the water. It kind of looks a bit gross because it decomposes it, but you'll know that it's still alive if it starts to produce bubbles, which is CO2 basically. So have a go at that. Karen asks or says, great info, thanks. Aren't most of the antioxidants and vitamins destroyed by heat? And so the answer is yes. And Michelle called me on that the other day when I was making it and said, Rob, you don't need to boil tea leaves, you just let them steep. So the next time we do this, we're just going to bring water up to a boil, and once it comes off the boil, then we'll dump the sea buckthorn berries and leaves in, and let them probably sit overnight, I suspect, as it cools down. And then I'll make sure that I crush the berries once it's cooled down, and then put it into our soda. And so we'll have a much better kind of antioxidant profile in that. And then Vita asks a similar question, or it's actually a statement, that research says that exposing honey to high heat isn't good for it. And I think you're probably right. And so I think once the water gets to a certain threshold temperature, maybe 50 degrees Celsius, we may mix it in at that point. So we still get some of the benefits of dissolving the honey at a warmer temperature without destroying some of the kind of health benefits of honey by putting it into a really hot water. So thanks for that recommendation. If you guys have any more recommendations on kefir soda or how to improve the process that we have in this video, please leave them in the comment section below. And yeah, thanks so much. We'll see you guys in the next video.